Will colleges panic as states eliminate their DEI offices and hiring nationwide? From highereddive.com, a look at the DEI eliminations at colleges across the U.S. A Republican-led crackdown on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in higher education is ramping up at colleges across the country. Opponents argue that DEI offices and programs create division and exclude wide swaths of campus from accessing resources. Because that's exactly what they do. They tell students if you're a certain race, you're entitled to these additional resources. If you're not that race, you don't have that skin color, well, you're not worth it. You don't get those resources. They weren't merit-based. They weren't needs-based. And that's what Republicans and normal people have been pushing back on. In turn, some advocacy groups have voiced concerns over the broad language used in some anti-DEI legislation, arguing that it could chill speech. And they're right, it is chilling speech. It's going pretty far. It's forcing some professors to deal with intellectual diversity law, which requires them to either teach two sides of an issue or potentially risk losing their tenure or losing their job. That's a very aggressive step to have to take, and the legislators wouldn't have had to take it if the professors weren't pushing their ideology and their agenda on these students. Many states have banned or tried to implement anti-DEI legislation, while others are applying pressure to college officials through intensive reviews. In some cases, college leaders are preemptively winding down DEI initiatives ahead of potential changes in laws, because the laws can be really draconian. And if the colleges and universities don't get their acts together, the legislators are going to hit them with laws that they wish were never on the books. In Texas was one of the first states to ban DEI programs and jobs at public colleges. Republican Governor Greg Abbott signed the DEI ban into law in June 2023, giving Texas institutions just 6 months to get their acts together and to comply with it before it took effect January 1st. In response, the University of North Texas said in December that it would restructure its Multicultural Center and Pride Alliance into the Student Affairs Office and launch a new Center for Belonging and Engagement. The university also cited a law when eliminating faculty senate committees and networking groups that focused on specific communities, including employees of color and women, the Dallas Morning News reported last week. Likewise, Texas A&M University closed its diversity offices and its LGBT Pride Center. Students protested their elimination, according to the Eagle. But there's nothing students can do, because this agenda was pushed too far. If you wanted to have an extra little office here that would celebrate this or celebrate that, it used to be okay. The problem was using these little offices and these little centers that then became bigger offices and bigger centers with more and more employees paid for by the government as launching pads to push your ideological agenda and force it on faculty and force it on students was going too far. And now they have to deal with the government cracking down on them. The University of Dallas eliminated its own DEI center in December. In January, officials created a new center, the Office of Campus Resources and Support, but they shut it down only 4 months later and eliminated 20 related jobs, with officials citing the DEI ban. Because of course it was just a rename. They're not getting away with just a rename. The University of Texas at Austin, its system's flagship, closed its Multicultural Engagement Center on January 1st, when the law took effect. Lawmakers warned college officials against simply renaming offices and job titles rather than making sustainable programmatic changes. In April, State Senator Brandon Creighton, a Republican who sponsored the legislative ban, told university system leaders that any effort to circumvent the ban could result in loss of state funding. If these colleges and universities lost their state funding, they would cease to exist. So that is something that gets the attention of the administrators at the schools. They make the changes. They comply with the law. And if they don't, they get caught, they get threatened, and then they comply. And in Florida politicians helped lead the nationwide charge against DEI in education. In May 2023, Republican Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill banning spending on DEI initiatives at all public colleges. In response, Florida International University eliminated its DEI office. In May, the University of North Florida similarly shut down its Diversity and Inclusion Office, along with its intercultural and interfaith centers and those focused on women and LGBT people, according to local news reports. In March, the University of Florida said it had closed its Office of the Chief Diversity Officer and laid off all DEI-related employees. Cuts included 13 full-time DEI positions and 15 administrative roles held by faculty, according to the Independent Florida Alligator, a student newspaper. The institution also suspended programming at the Center for Inclusion and Multicultural Engagement. Some student groups said they were left in the dark about the change, and they said it's unclear if the center will reopen. It's not going to reopen. The homepage of the center's website says it's under construction. Here's that website page. The website is currently under construction. We appreciate your patience while we update our site. If you require assistance in the meantime, please contact us at this email address. Yeah, it's not going to get reopened. This is just like a placeholder page. You would think the students would have figured that out by now. Florida State University also dismantled its DEI office, although the Tallahassee Democrat reported in March that the process avoided layoffs by changing job titles and restructuring roles. Nothing wrong with doing that. If you want to change people's jobs and you want to give them different responsibilities and take them out of a center and not put them in a DEI office, they can do what they need to do in other offices. That's fine, as long as you don't center a place where people can go and use that to push their agenda on the other students, require resources that other students don't get. They don't need that. In Kentucky, the University of Kentucky dissolved its diversity center and reassigned related employees in August as a way of addressing state politicians' concerns over DEI before they enacted legislation. Conservative Kentucky lawmakers have made repeated attempts to restrict or completely eliminate DEI in higher education, while no bills have become law. University of Kentucky President Eli Capilouto suggested their efforts weren't likely to let up. Quote, Kentucky legislators have made it clear to me in our conversations that they're exploring these issues again as they prepare for the 2025 legislative session. If we are to be a campus for everyone, we must demonstrate to ourselves and to those who support and invest in our commitment to the idea that everyone belongs, both in what we say and in what we do. Northern Kentucky University also recently announced that it eliminated its DEI Center. President Katie Short Thompson said that Northern Kentucky's chief diversity officer had stepped down, according to WCPO. And the University of Louisville renamed its DEI office as the Office of Institutional Equity. The heads of both the University of Louisville and the University of Kentucky presented their recent changes to DEI programming before lawmakers this week. And in the great state of North Carolina, a May policy change from the University of North Carolina System Board of Governors directed all 17 of its member institutions to eliminate DEI centers, positions, and programming. Altogether, the institutions cut just over $17 million in DEI-related funding, which the system asked to be redirected on a broader basis to student success initiatives, including scholarships. So why would you spend $17 million on DEI centers? Really accomplishing nothing. Let's be honest. It really doesn't accomplish anything. You can't make people feel like they, quote, belong just by spending $17 million. People have to get by and assimilate themselves into society. There's no way to subsidize that and make it work. Instead, they're using the money on a merit basis to support their students. Scholarships, other things that people can apply for, get to use, benefit from, equal to what their actual needs are, not equal to what their skin colors are or their sexual preferences. The University of North Carolina Wilmington closed its Office of Institutional Diversity and Inclusion and reassigned the cultural and identity centers it ran to the Student Affairs Office. It also changed some of these centers' programming to comply with the new policy. Meanwhile, the University of North Carolina at Charlotte shuttered 3 DEI centers on its campus, including one focused on academic diversity and inclusion. Appalachian State University replaced its Intercultural Student Affairs Office with a Student Success Center, because student success is what it's supposed to all be about, and not just success for certain people of certain sexual preferences or certain skin colors, success for all the students. Like Texas lawmakers, the UNC System's Legal Affairs Division warned colleges to make substantive changes to comply with the new rule, rather than just tweaking employees' titles. Across the system, colleges eliminated 59 DEI-related positions and restructured an additional 131 jobs. And in Nebraska, public universities in Nebraska eliminated centers and programming that could invoke ire from the state's conservative lawmakers. The University of Nebraska at Omaha shuttered its Gender and Sexuality Resource Center this summer and moved its services to other divisions after closing its Office of Multicultural Affairs last year. And the University of Nebraska-Lincoln announced last month it would close its Office of Diversity and Inclusion. A recent Republican bill would have banned DEI at the state's public colleges, but it failed to advance amid outspoken criticism earlier this year, including from the University of Nebraska system. But the Republican-controlled legislature could try again during the legislative session next year. In Alabama, in July, the University of Alabama's flagship campus said it would shutter its Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. The move came in response to a new state law set to go in effect October 1st. That law bans public colleges from maintaining DEI offices. The University of Alabama at Birmingham and the University of Alabama in Huntsville also closed DEI offices on their campuses, replacing them with student support centers with a broader focus. In Oklahoma, after Republican Governor Kevin Stitt ordered the state's public colleges to review all DEI-related programs and jobs, the University of Oklahoma announced the directive would force it to eliminate all of its diversity offices. In February, President Joseph Harris Jr. said in an email to campus that the university's DEI division would be replaced with a division of access and opportunity. He also said the university would end DEI-related roles and move affected staff members into new positions. Citing the governor's order, the university also dissolved a program designed to support women seeking to work in public service. Good, you don't need a program supporting women to work in public service. You could allow men and women to work in public service. Perhaps more women will apply than men, perhaps more men will apply than women. If it's government-sponsored, it should be equal to everyone. There should be no limitation based on gender, sexual preference, race, religious affiliation, or country of national origin. And speaking of North Carolina, the Daily Tar Heel tells us about a couple of professors that are not so happy with the changes. Quote, critical diverse voices. Performance studies faculty reflect on DEI defunding. Recent diversity, equity, and inclusion funding cuts at UNC have affected the lives of students and faculty since the repeal of UNC system DEI policies this May. However, assistant professor in performative studies, Lisa Calvente, said the dismantling of DEI is not going to stop the work she does. It is Calvente's fourth year at the university, and her work centers on racism and colonialism, the Black diaspora, and critical race theory in areas of performance and cultural studies. I thought critical race theory was supposed to be something that was only discussed as an abstract concept in law schools. I didn't think it was supposed to be spread throughout our public universities. Oh, well, I guess it is. And of course, it's also been pushed into public education, K through 12. Calvente teaches a cultural diversity class that grapples with the relations of power and communication on multiple levels, including gender, sexuality, class, and race. And don't try to bring those skills to your next job because they're not going to be applicable. They're not going to be worth anything. So it's a waste of time and money to pursue this ideological agenda, especially in public universities. Josh Richardson, who studies communications, took a class with Calvente. He said that the intentional exposure to DEI concepts has shown him the importance of other perspectives and histories he had not been educated on previously. Well, some of the material was not emotionally easy to learn, but it was important to understand so that I was aware of the history of things, such as systemic racism, so that it was not reproduced. So this student, Josh Richardson, is not going to reproduce systemic racism because he took Calvente's class. I mean, that's great, except it never existed in the first place. There is no such thing. And no, Josh was not going to restart systemic racism or get involved in that whatsoever. He's been wasting his time with a class like this. Not only are Calvente's courses centered around diversity, but she's also involved in the Student Learning to Achieve Truth and Equity program under the Sonia Hayes Stone Center for Research in Black Culture and History. This program aims to help undergraduate students think about racial inequalities and their implications across disciplines, which is another waste of time and distraction for those students. They should focus on their studies, get through their classes, and get great careers going for themselves, and then start great families. Calvente has worked with Slate since her first semester at UNC, both teaching and researching. With her involvement in programs like Slate and course curriculum, Calvente is very connected to the consequences of DEI defunding and will continue to focus on promoting diversity on campus despite these consequences. Quote, "What I'm doing is really centering on the complexities of history and those power relations that come from those complexities of history. And that includes inequity," Calvente said. Imagine taking a class with someone who speaks that way. However, she's concerned about where her students might be able to find safe spaces to learn more about DEI and UNC. Because every student who is becoming a full-time independent adult needs to have a safe space or they can't function. When these students who require safe spaces to function graduate college, should they graduate college, they will quickly learn that society does not provide safe spaces for people to do their work. They don't do it now, they're not going to. You have to assimilate into society. DEI programs used to provide grants for those spaces, among other things. As the program suffered cuts, these grants also faltered. Calvente said that her own work has benefited from these grants as they're part of the DEI standards under which she was hired, meaning she got cash money from the government to push this in addition to her salary and her benefits. Specifically, she was hired in a department spread cluster aimed to improve academic integrity through diversity. Calvente said that she makes sure to emphasize this aspect of her career because she believes that proactively hiring diverse voices improves the search for knowledge and a critical understanding of the world. Quote, "You only do that with critical diverse voices that take the history that we have," Calvente said. She received a DEI grant, the Moore Undergraduate Research Apprentice Program, to conduct her research here at the university. Other professors at UNC have also struggled. Joseph Meagle, a professor in the Department of Communication, said that faculty members have felt betrayed by the university. Well, there's a sense that we're going down a different type of road, which is not as positive. Retention will be a problem, especially with faculty of color. We've seen people leave, very talented people leave the university. Great to see the self-selection here. So if you're not going to get supported to do things that are really just destructive to the students, destructive for society, make it impossible to assimilate, that are there just to push a religious style ideology on students where you can't question, disagree with, or even have a discussion about alternatives to their point of view, it's great to see those teachers pick up and just take it somewhere else. Though losing something very fundamental and positive for the university, Meagle said that the arts will continue to uphold the values of DEI as artists have always been intrinsically involved in promoting diverse voices and perspectives. Quote, "All artists from every stripe have always been part of the process and will continue to be. Nothing will ever change about that." Similar to Meagle, Calvente said that the dismantling of DEI lets her know that her work is significant, particularly because it points to resources and social justice advocates that existed before the institution of DEI policies. Social justice advocates. This cycle underlines an ongoing systemic problem, but Calvente believes people will continue to do the work to rebuild DEI policies. Well, pointing to the complexities of history is not a political agenda, unless that political agenda is the production of knowledge, Calvente said. We're all supposed to be invested in that. DEI is on the way out of colleges, universities, businesses, and government. It's only a matter of time. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.